right now we're going to have presentation from Kacper Domański, the astronauts. One feature to rule them all.
Thank you. Okay, hi, my name is Kacper Domański. I am a programmer and designer at the Astronauts, and the title of my talk is One Feature to Rule Them All. And the very first thing I want to tell you is what this talk is not about, because I don't want to misguide anyone. I'm not going to sell you like an ultimate feature, something that will sell your game or instantly make it great. And I do believe that if there is anyone on the planet that's telling you that they can simply solve every problem that you have and give you an ultimate solution, they are either incompetent or lying. So, is it working? Oh, it's working. Oh, yeah. So, who is this talk for? This talk is basically for me 3 years ago, for someone who wants to create games, for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience yet, or for someone who's creating their own indie title, but they don't have industry background yet. But I still believe that a lot of things that I will talk about in this talk can be addressed by people that have an experience in game dev industry and can be still used. So, as I said, I'm working at a company called the Astronauts that previously released the Vanishing Captain Carter, and I've joined after that project, and we're working on yet an unannounced one. Also, I'm head of Slavic Game Jam, it's the biggest game jam in Eastern Europe, and obviously the biggest one in Poland with almost 300 participants. But before I joined the industry, I was part of Polygon, this game dev society that we have in Warsaw, and with a bunch of awesome people. We were doing lectures, workshops, game jams, and a lot of other stuff to bring indie community in Warsaw together. And actually, when I joined Polygon, I started attending game jams, and for past few years I attended quite a few ones, and I also helped and or coordinated organizing a lot of them. So this was my main background as I was coming to industry, and as I knew that there are a lot of connections between the game jams and real life production, like day-to-day production, as soon as I started working, I've discovered that there are many more links than I thought. So, so this talk will be about two things. First one is how to use an experience from game jams in day-to-day production, and how to like properly learn from one game jam to the other. And the second thing is why I think that your game is way too complex and you should make it simpler. And this will be based on my experience both for like past 1.5 years working at the Astronauts and at game jams. So the very first thing you have to learn when you're attending a game jam is time management. It's usually a game jam is 40 to 48 hours. There are shorter or longer versions, but this is the most common one. And in this very, very short period of time, you have to come up with an idea. So brainstorm with your team, then create a prototype. Then you have not a lot of time to polish it, and then in the end you have to put it on the internet or publish it in some way. So we know, everyone knows, that there are a lot of companies, bigger companies, that they have an experienced team. Like basically everyone has 3 or 4 years of experience, and they still end up crunching, and it all ends with pushing back the premiere or canceling a project, or like in out of 3 cases here, the game was pushed back and it actually didn't help, and the game was still some kind of failure on launch. So I remember that my very first game jam was Global Game Jam 2014, and the theme of that game jam was we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. And I really can't understand how did it end up like me loving game jams and game jamming so much after a game jam that has such a shitty theme. But it's Global Game Jam. They have like very, very weird approach to game jam themes. So we end up with a team of 3, 1 artist and 2 programmers, and we've understood that this theme is so deep that we have to make a very deep game to show it. We have to tell a deep, compelling story, and we have to have a deep, compelling narrative that wasn't direct to a player. So we've came up with an idea that actually doesn't fit what we were able to do. We had 2 programmers and 1 artist, so we decided to make a platformer without a level designer, which has to end up like a fiasco. We have overscoped. We have, I think that we were brainstorming for like 4 or 5 hours out of 46 hours period on Global Game Jam. So we've ended up going to sleep without any prototype of gameplay, anything at all. And this is actually the only thing that I have from this game, this weird screenshot. There was no proper gameplay. Like, I think we had like 1 level that you were able to pass in like 15 seconds or something like that. So there was a lot of mistakes made here. And I actually had to make them once again on another game jam to understand what we are doing wrong. And that got me thinking that I should probably try doing a game jam by myself. If you want to, there is this cool thing called Ludum Dare. It's running, I think, 4 times a year. There is the jam that takes 48 hours, and you have to participate alone. So it's a very good challenge to understand what you can actually do in that period and how you can work by yourself, and it really helps working in a team. I've actually attended one myself, and then we've organized something that was called Polygon Compo, I think. So we just came with a bunch of people, 10 or 15 of us. We've called Sauce, so he gave us a theme. A theme, as it was Christmas edition, was a fish in space, which I don't know how it was exactly a Christmas theme, but Sauce thought so. And I've made a short little mobile game. And my approach when I was coming to this project was, okay, so if we are starting at like 6 p.m., I have to have a working gameplay prototype by midnight. That was my only assumption before. So I've actually did it. It took me like 4 or 5 hours to prototype a game. You were supposed to like catch a fish that they were escaping into space from water. Weird shit, but that was something that got me thinking, because that approach that I used here is exactly what is called a 444 rule. It's an approach that's rather known within the game jam community. I think that the one that's promoting it mostly is Rami Ismail from Vlambir, and he has talked about it in the past. If you want to find out more, then you can go check out his talks from Nordic Game Jam last year. They were really great. But basically this approach tells you that you have to, if you have 48 hours to make a game during a game jam, you have to put 4 hours into making a game itself and then 44 into polishing. It shows you like exactly how much time it will take you to make a very simple prototype into a proper game. And it works really well, and it has quite a few advantages. But this is not rocket science. This is something that's in science is called Pareto principle, that the rule that 20% of time will equal 80% of results, or 20% of people owns 80% of wealth on the world, and so on and so on. There was this guy called Vilfredo Pareto, who was an Italian economist, I think, and he came up with the idea. And this approach, especially during a game jam, has one large advantage. That if you, for example, if the game jam starts at like 6 p.m., you spend 4 or 5 hours prototyping your game, then you would probably not get some sleep. And then in the morning you wake up and you think, oh, well, this is not working. This is exactly, this idea is a very bad idea, and well, I don't know why we haven't seen that from the very beginning. If you use that approach, at this point on Saturday morning, you still have 36 hours maybe, so you can just press the reset button. You can just start over. Then you have 3:33. So it's not that big of a change when it comes to the time that you have to divide your project into parts. And this is the great quote by Stephen King, kill your darlings, even when it breaks your egocentric little scribbles heart, kill your darlings. And this is a thing that I think a lot of game developers forget about. I think like every creative person forgets about it. We get very attached to the things that we came up with, to our design, to our ideas, and we can't sacrifice them because we think like this was so good when we came up with it. So it like why should I delete it? And I actually had with our team during last Global Game Jam exactly the same problem. We were creating a game that was physically based brawler, and we wanted to make a game when you are running from the theme of Global Game Jam was waves, and we wanted to make a game about running from falling hotel during some kind of catastrophe. And we spent a lot of time in the evening prototyping like physically based weird movement and developing the art style a little bit. And we were quite happy with it, so we went to sleep. Then we met the next day in the morning, and we like, I don't feel it. And we realized that everyone in the teams feels exactly the same way. The idea that we had wasn't good at all. We had no working prototype. We didn't even knew how we do want this game to work. So we've pivoted. We've scrapped like almost everything, but the things that we already had. So we've kept the art style, and we've kept the physics movement. And if I can have displayed for just a few seconds, if it will load. So we've ended up with so basically with something not crazy, but okay. Let go. Thank you. So this I think it came up really well. We got an award for best gameplay, even though our game lacked gameplay, in my opinion, because there are only two things you can make in this. Three things. You can jump. You can grab a weapon and use it only once, and then it breaks. So there are no blocks. Each weapon has different stats. You can punch somebody with a shotgun or something like that. So there are a few really cool concepts, but in the end you cannot block, you cannot counter-attack. So it looks really juicy, but doesn't feel that much when you play it. And that got me thinking that if we were to thank you. If we were to make it simpler at the very beginning, how would it work if we were to decide that the only thing that we want in this game is people to fight? If we want to polish the only one thing, because we spent way too much time like trying out different combinations from the force for the camera to work, and it really like I'm very happy with the result because we had 4 people in team, 2 programmers and 2 graphics, so it's ended up pretty well. But what if we were to make it as simple from the design perspective? And there are quite a lot of games that I think do that. Like they are focusing on only one thing, on delivering one feature. There's Lichtspiel, who like the games that makes you feel like destroying this light spear is really great, and you have a lot of feedback when you hit an enemy. There are a lot of particles. There is music. It all like ties up. There's Hotline Miami, which like makes your every kill very bloody, and you are very satisfied. You have these flashing points, the screen shakes, a lot of this shit. You have Nuclear Throne, where you have bodies flying around. You have Super Hot, which makes every second-to-second gameplay worth it. You enjoy even standing in this game and looking into flying bullets. If you see a katana somewhere, you can grab it and toss it into your enemy. You have very, very much opportunities when it comes to like how will your second-to-second gameplay look like? There is Space Pirate Trainer VR. It was actually, this game excels in what Superhot made possible at first. So Superhot allowed you to feel like Neo in Matrix. Superhot VR feels exactly like Neo in Matrix because when the bullet is approaching your head, it's HTC Vive and Oculus game. When the bullet is approaching your head, time slows down. So you have the real ability to dodge a bullet, and you feel it by like with all your body. So it's pretty good. There's turmoil great in the game, which like focuses entirely on player deciding where he wants to sell the oil that he's getting, if you want to store it or sell it to one of the two companies. And all these things, all these games have at least one thing in common, in my opinion. And this is the fact that they excel in their core feature. You have to, in my opinion, this is the thing that you need to develop. You have to understand what your game core feature is, what's your second-to-second gameplay is, and then build on that. And I think that a lot of games and a lot of designers lack this perspective. We think about, oh, well, we have hack and slash games, so we have to have a lot of loot, a lot of armors, a lot of customization, a lot of like, different worlds. But when you stop thinking about what the player will be doing like for every second of their game, if they will be having fun slashing the enemies or like killing monsters or doing whatever they will be doing in your game, then in my opinion, you've missed the point. Because this is exactly what, in my opinion, the best games excel. It's the fact that in Grand Theft Auto, driving is smooth, because most of the time of the game you will be driving a car. Is the fact that in, I know, FIFA, every goal scored will be very exciting because you will get the different camera angles of your goal or stuff like that. It's why Destiny has like millions of players a week, 3 years after release, because every shot from your gun is excellent. Like the game gives you a lot of feedback from for every second of your game, and then you can build on that. But if you're an indie team, 5 people or 10 or 3, and you don't have a lot of experience, then you can be asking yourself, okay, so, well, we have this core feature, we're making this game, but if we want to make this core feature the best in the world, and because that's basically what you should want, to make one thing in your game be the best on the whole world. But if you don't have enough experience, then you might be asking yourself, okay, so how do I do that? That's not obvious. So there's this great man comedian that you probably know, star of Fawlty Towers, Fish Called Wanda, and Monty Python, John Cleese, that once asked about a tip that he has for young comedians or young writers, said, steal if you think it's really good. And I think it may sound a little bit controversial, but given the context that he used, the fact that he wrote in his autobiography that he realized at some point in his life that there are a lot of people writing comedian stuff, and there is very, very small amount of people that's writing a very good sketches or good jokes, and a lot of people that write a ton of crap. And if you're at the very beginning of your career or you're learning, he said that it doesn't matter if you're a comedian or an actor or a writer, you should steal. You should steal the idea, you should steal the concept and transfer it to your own experience, to your own ground, because it will change. It won't be the same as soon as you start putting your life, your experience, your ideas into it. But you will still have a very firm background to build on. It's not like you shouldn't reinvent the wheel. There are games that did shooting pretty good. There are games that there are great walking simulators, platformers, and you can try to at least build on their experience. because doing everything by yourself, and I think a lot of us are trying to do because, well, I'm so creative, so I can come up with an idea that will be better. I think it's a mistake because it takes a lot of time to develop to develop things that other people already did, and we can learn on their experience. There are talks at GDC, at Nordic Games, at Reboot. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of talks here that will make your game better by including things that people already developed. And you can actually try this approach at Game Jam, because you definitely shouldn't be reinventing the wheel during a Game Jam. For example, if you're making a top-down shooter, we can look at Enter the Gungeon or Nuclear Phone or Hotline Miami and try to understand what these games did better and try to develop on that thing. If you're making a platformer, don't make a platformer during a Game Jam. It's a very stupid idea. Don't do it. It wasn't a good idea anyway, so simply don't. But every single game that you're making, you can probably find a good reference point. And this is, I think, another thing that a lot of indie developers are totally missing the point. A lot of them are not looking at the market, at other games of their genre. They are not getting enough reference points to understand where are we on the market. Are we doing something that anyone would want to play? Because if you are making a game that doesn't have a lot of competitors, there are two options. Either we are doing something creative and new, like Superhot did, and then we never know if it will end up good or bad. But there are occasions that we are making a game and we know that there are games like this and they failed. And they either failed because they were done poorly, but maybe they were pretty good and still no one wanted to play them. And there are pretty good examples. Lichtspiel is one of them. It's a really great game, but it failed when it comes to going to the market. I think guys will manage this. They are coming on different platforms and so on, but they weren't able to find a reference point on the market, in my opinion. So there's a story from Game Jam called Game Jam in Theater in Poznań. Just before I did this Game Jam with my friend, we were playing a lot of Overcooked. It's a really amazing game. It excels in design at every point, in my opinion, and if you haven't played it, you should. It's really great because of a few things. It's very responsive, but it also, by giving you the recipes that you can see on the top, it forces you to divide tasks between people playing in front of one computer. So actually, this is up to 4 players game, but my friend told me that they were playing with 5 people, and one was just giving orders, because it was so complex that to manage it, you had to have one person more to divide the tasks and to make it smooth. And it's really a fun game, and we had a lot of fun playing it. So we decided when it came to Game Jam that we want to make something similar. So the theme of the Game Jam was Dziady. So this is this Polish Slavic feast of commemoration thing, and also very well-known play. So we wanted to make a game that will approach the feast of commemoration thing, not the play, but that will feel in the same way. So we were trying to reproduce the effect that you had in Overcooked. So you had to communicate between players, to divide tasks, and understand what you're doing. You had this little souls that will appear, like this one here, and every soul will require you to bring them something that will remind them about their life. So there will it can be a holy water, it can be a food, or you have to start a fire, or bring them alcohol. It was all based on the things that people actually brought to the graves of dead people during this feast originally. So it wasn't supposed to feel exactly skip the half. So it wasn't supposed to feel exactly like Overcooked, but we wanted it to have a similar approach. So we are still moving, grabbing things, but we added another approach of of cooperation. So when you brought all the ingredients you had to bring to a soul, you will be forced to input the. Oh, it will be seen in a moment. You will be forced to input like simple QuickTime event, but when these arrows here. But if the player is standing next to you when you are doing this, it takes a little less time, so you can like jump in with your friend and speed it up. Also, if someone will press the wrong button, so if you want to communicate on who is doing this, you will fail. So we wanted this approach. We also were two programmers only, so we went with very, very simple art style, but a lot of people liked it, so I think this is one of the funniest game that the most fun game that I did during a game jam. So this all comes to the thing that I said, that in my opinion you should find the core feature of your game. You should expose it as much as you can, because what you want is a player enjoy every second of your game. If they will be able to enjoy every second, then you can build up on this. And in this case, well, it was very, very simple. We wanted to like show the fact that players playing in the front of one computer, they have to communicate, because this is like what gives you a lot of fun in co-op games. And this is exactly what this all comes to the quantity versus quality, because if you have only one feature to polish, like to polish it to the limit, and this will be the one that will be responsible for your second-to-second gameplay, for your core gameplay loop, then I strongly believe that it will make your games much better. Because in the end, if you have a lot of things that are done mediocre and like there's nothing special about it, it's like a regular game, then no one, this may be the wrong way to put it, but people wanted to enjoy it that much that they can enjoy it if your game is polished at the very thing that you'll do very often. And we kind of are doing this at the astronauts right now with the game that I cannot talk about, so I won't tell you how we are doing it. But we are thinking a lot about the thing that we are making a game that's probably a little bit overscoped for our size, but we know that we can deliver quite a few features at like top level. Because if we focus on that, we will drop the things that other games in the market in our genre will have, or they already have. We won't be able to like deliver everything. But there are quite a few things that people will do in your game for 90% of time, for like in Pareto rule, for 80% of your time. And they will have a lot of fun if these things are polished. And these things will make players return to your game. And I think that you can simply test this approach at Game Jam, or maybe at Slavic Game Jam, which will happen 28th to 30th of July in Warsaw. And I hope you will come to Warsaw and join us. I think that a lot of these like design decisions or design perspective can be tested on a Game Jam, and you can take the feedback out of it. It won't translate directly. It doesn't work that way. There are a lot of things that are slightly different, and other things that can be translated from Game Jam to production. For example, you can't translate production from Game Jam to production because it will be a nightmare. But I think you should try it, and I think it can help make your games better. So that's all from me. Thank you. If you want to follow me on Twitter, @KacperDev. If you have any questions, I will help